All right, guys, in this episode of State of the Braves, we're going to talk about the Braves offseason strategy a little bit more. Last time I came to you guys with several different strategies. These were just generally strategies that I liked, were kind of intriguing to me, not necessarily strategies that I thought the Braves might adopt. So in this episode, we're going to talk about my best guess, and I do admit it really is just maybe a slightly educated guess on where I think the Braves really are going to go this offseason. You can hold me to it if you want to. I'm likely to be wrong on these because Anthopoulos is notoriously, plays everything close to the vest and always gives us some surprises each offseason. But I'm going to do my best to try to read the tea leaves a little bit and give you guys my best take on what the Braves are going to do this offseason. All right, let's do it. All right, guys. So as we are past Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving holiday. By the way, I did for sure. I really love Thanksgiving. It's hard to say that it's better than Christmas, but I do really love the holiday and all the great food and family and all that stuff. So I hope you guys had a blessed Thanksgiving. And as we are past Thanksgiving, this is when typically the offseason really ramps up for baseball and a lot of deals are being done. The Dodgers have been the one team that have been particularly active so far. They make the biggest splash so far of the offseason, signing Blake Snell, and they also tore up Tommy Edman's contract and gave him a new contract as well. So it seems like the Dodgers are set at shortstop and have gotten their big free agent pitcher. Now, they're the Dodgers. They can afford to do other things. They could afford to go after another pitcher if they really wanted to. It seems like their pockets are almost limitless. But that being said, it does seem like Blake Snell is going to be their big pitching target of the offseason. Now, as far as the Braves go, does that affect them much? I mean, it could if the Braves really are in the market for Willy Adames. The fact that the Dodgers are done at shortstop maybe helps the Braves. If the Braves really are trying to bring back Max Fried, that's probably one less suitor for Max Fried. I actually think the biggest impact that this might have is the Braves shopping in the Walker Buehler section of free agency. So again, with them bringing Blake Snell back, it doesn't seem like they're going to bring Max Fried back. It doesn't seem like they would bring Walker Buehler. He's going to be by far the cheaper option between those two. And I could expect the Braves to maybe go down that road. I'm going to talk about Walker Buehler a little bit more in this episode. But in the meantime, guys, remember, the main point of this episode is I really am trying my best to predict what the Braves are going to do this offseason. I know that's a losing battle. I know the likelihood of me getting any of this right is really low, but it's a good conversation starter. You guys can hammer my decisions here, and I know a lot of you guys disagreed with some of the things I threw out last episode. Totally fine, but remember that last episode was just meant to kind of brainstorm several different options. Some of them were outside the box. They were not necessarily meant to be realistic. It was just meant to go beyond, the typical for what the Braves do. But this one, we're really trying to look at the typical thing the Braves do. All right, so I'm trying to blend a few different elements into how I'm constructing this offseason for the Braves and what I think they're going to do. Number one, I want to have realistic targets for the Braves, whether it's through trade or free agency. I'm not going to go absolutely nuts. We're not trying to, go after Corbin Burns and Willy Adames and trade for somebody, right? We're trying to stay in the real world here. Number two, I want to be realistic to what the Braves typically do and what their biggest needs are. Okay, so sorry guys, but no major huge free agent signings. I'm trying to read the tea leaves based off of what Alex Anthopoulos has done in the past and some of the early rumors of what the Braves might be interested in. And then the last thing I'm trying to do here is stay under the CBT number. Now, this is debatable. It's not certain that the Braves are actually trying to stay under the CBT number and restart that clock. They've been in the upper echelons of the penalties the last couple years. The penalties grow. I'm not going to pretend like I'm the master of the CBT tax stuff. I mean, it's just probably mind-numbing if I really went down that road too long. So I might be making mistakes here. If you guys know more about it, then please comment about it. But I'm saying the Braves, if they're trying to stay under the CBT number, what I have seen reported, and that's all I'm going off of as a fan here, guys, I'm a fan just like you guys, is that they could spend between $25 and $27 million and still be under the CBT and restart that clock moving forward. So that's what I'm trying to do. Again, I'm not certain that the Braves actually will do that. In the past, that's been talked about, and the Braves have spent beyond that, and they haven't seemed to have been too influenced by that. But I do wonder if this year might be a little different, because year 3 is when the penalties really get worse and start kicking in. Okay, so again, this is my best attempt to predict what the Braves will do based on past off seasons and their current needs. It's not necessarily what I would do, right? I'm going off of what I think the Braves will do. If you want to go back to the last episode, I tried to give you some ideas of what I would do. So when it comes to Anthopoulos, the name of the game is value. That's kind of my primary road that I'm going down here, okay? Trying to find players with value. Every player basically that I'm targeting in this episode is seen through that lens of value. Okay, so in this prediction, by the way, you won't see me trading Orlando Arcia or Sean Murphy. If you've followed me and listened to some of my other videos, I'm very much in favor of one or both of those happening, but I recognize that that's probably not the most realistic or most likely scenario. Doesn't mean it won't happen. It could surprise me. I think of the two, the more likely to go would be Arcia, but in this episode, I'm saying that that's probably not going to happen. Now, I am going to mention one potential trade at the back end of this episode for Arcia to just look out for. Again, I'm not predicting it, but it's an interesting one to me that's a little bit on my radar. All right, so let's go to it. I think the Braves will prioritize starting pitching first, then outfield, then bullpen. And again, they're choosing to lean on Orlando Arcia to hold down shortstop for at least one more year. He is signed for 2 more years. And if you guys have listened to me for any amount of time, you know that I've kind of been done with the Orlando Arcia experiment for a long time. And so by the end of 2025, I really might be pulling my hair out. But I'm saying that he's probably staying. I think that's the most likely scenario. Okay, so my first move is to find a starting pitcher. And, you know, I tossed around multiple names. There's quite a few names out there. And I ended up with the Braves signing Jose Quintana, $10 million per year, 2-year, $20 million deal. So Quintana, of course, has been with the Mets the last couple years. He has a career 3.74 ERA with a 1.28 WHIP. He's entering his age 35 season. He's entering his age 36 season. So last year was his age 35 season, and his numbers mirrored his career numbers. Okay, so he basically he's very consistent. He's had some up and down years, but not crazy up and down. So he's a very consistent pitcher. He's a low velocity lefty, but he misses barrels. And you know, he's probably not going to be a guy that's going to start a game 1 or game 2 in the playoffs, but he's going to give you a lot of innings. And that's valuable. Now, if you're making the argument against Quintana, his peripherals didn't look great. His expected ERA last year was 4.52. So, but I think he's always outperformed some of those expected numbers. Now, let me be clear. I would prefer a big deal for Garrett Crochet or a shorter-term deal for Walker Buehler. I think those two, obviously Crochet is really one of the better pitchers in baseball right now. He hasn't proved it over a long period of time, but he has a very high ceiling. Walker Buehler also has a higher ceiling than Quintana, though, you know, injury issues and some performance, even though he was quite good in the playoffs. But I just honestly expect the Braves to be interested in both, but to be outbid for both. Crochet outbid in prospects And Buehler, I think there's going to be a couple teams out there that are willing to pay more for Buehler than the Braves would pay. Now, if Buehler is just really about winning and he's willing to leave a couple $1 million on the table and go to Atlanta, maybe that happens, but I don't know that it will happen. So Quintana does fit in as an effective innings-eating veteran. You're losing Charlie Morton, so he kind of fits that mold, and he provides another lefty. So you're losing Max Fried. You're getting another lefty that's very different than Chris Sale. So a totally different look from the left side for the Braves. And, again, he's a comparative bargain. I'm really leaning into this value idea. So he's a bargain compared to most free agent pitchers. You can get a starting pitcher for $10 million. That's basically, what they're paying for Ronaldo Lopez right now. And I think they like finding those deals. He's older, so you can get a short-term deal for him. Again, MLB trade rumors, that's where I'm getting this number, 2 years, $20 million. He could get a little more, he could get a little less. But yeah, Jose Quintana would be the first move I expect for the Braves. Okay, the second move for the Braves is to acquire an outfielder, and I'm going to do that by trading for Adolis Garcia. He's making $9.5 million this year. As you guys know, I would love for the Braves to go after a guy like Brent Rooker. I've mentioned him quite a few times, but he'll be more expensive in terms of prospects because he's making less money and he's got 3 years of control compared to Garcia's 2 years. So I think Garcia is more gettable and less expensive. And, as some of you have pointed out, Brent Rooker may just be a pure DH, and the Braves might have no interest in that. Garcia is maybe just better than a DH. His defense was not good this year, a lot worse actually than it has been in his career. So I don't know what that's about. Of course, defensive metrics sometimes are way off. He does have a great arm out in the outfield, but he's coming off a bad year all the way around, Garcia is. But he's only 1 year removed from a great year, just very similar to the year Brent Rooker just had with the A's. And of course, the other thing I really like about Adolis Garcia is he's proven it as a big time postseason performer. So again, he's only earning $9.5 million next year and has 1 more year of arbitration control. But yes, he will certainly be cheaper than Brent Rooker and probably some other guys out there. Garcia is coming off a very down year that probably cannot be blamed on injury. I kind of wondered that at first. I don't follow the Rangers as much, so I was like, well, maybe he was, had a pulled hamstring or whatever. Something was affecting his swing. Doesn't seem like it. His chase rate and walk rate went really down. They got a lot worse. So already a swing and miss guy, he was not impacting the baseball as consistently. We certainly, Braves fans, experienced that last year. And so Garcia kind of mirrors some of the issues that the Braves had last year. But he does seem like a classic Braves guy. They love slug. They love power. They love big-time exit velocity. And he's got all of that for sure. He is a pure power hitter. Don't forget, he was a good player in 2022. He was a 3-WAR player that year, and then he followed it up with an all-star year, was even better in 2023. He had a 4.6 WAR season. He was an all-star, and then, of course, had all the heroics in the postseason. He had amazing 2023. The question is, can he bounce back from a really bad 2024, where he was considerably worse, both offensively and defensively? Garcia isn't my favorite outfield target because he's a big-time swing and miss guy, and I would really like the Braves to balance their lineup a bit more. But I think Garcia is totally gettable. Now, why do I say that? Why would the Rangers sell a guy that some would consider the heart and soul of a team that won the World Series just 2 years ago? Well, simple. There are reports that the Rangers are trying to get under the CBT number. His name has been floated multiple times as someone they might be shopping. And I also wonder if the connection with Tim Hires, the Braves' new hitting coach, might be another small piece to bring him to Atlanta. Like if Hires says, "Oh man, this is a great guy. He's great in the clubhouse. I know he didn't have a good year last year, but this, and this is why, and I really think he can bounce back. Maybe that's just another thing that would lead the Braves to go out and get him. Oh, and by the way, he's the brother of Braves great, Braves great Adonis Garcia. So there's a connection there too. I'm definitely joking on that one. Not that he's his brother, but Braves great. Yeah, that was in the doldrums of the Braves rebuild. Adonis Garcia starting at third base. All right, so what would the cost be? I mean, I'm not going to sit here, guys, and tell you I know a great breakdown of how expensive Adolis Garcia would be. I think maybe one big prospect plus maybe a little bit more could get Adolis. I mean, obviously that's much cheaper than some of these really big time names on the trade market. So that's another reason why I think the Braves would be willing to do it. It's not a crazy high asking price. And again, the ceiling for Adolis Garcia is really high. He can be a really impactful player, and when he gets hot, he can carry a team just like he did with the Rangers in 2023, or 2024. He can disappear, and so it is a roll of the dice on that. But I think in terms of impact bat, it might be something the Braves look to do. The third move that I think the Braves might make is to sign another outfielder. That's right, signing two outfielders, this time David Peralta. So Peralta is 37 years old. He's in the twilight of his career. I think you could get him for pretty cheap. I'm saying $3 million. I'm kind of making up that number, but he only played for basically league minimum with the Padres last year. He had a good bounce back year with the Padres in very limited time. I think he only had about 250 at bats, but he played well in those at bats. So, the word on the street is the Braves are looking for a lefty outfielder, which only makes sense to me if the Braves are starting to move on from Jared Kelenic. Otherwise, just use him as your lefty bat in the outfield. I would love for the Braves, and I mentioned this in my last episode, I would love for them to return to Jock Peterson and bring him back. But the reason I'm not putting Jock in this episode is I just think he might be a little too expensive for what the Braves are trying to do, especially if they're trying to rebuild their outfield before Ronald comes back and bring in two guys. If they're fine with just bringing in one big impact bat, then I actually do think Jock might come back or be back, but I'm not necessarily expecting it because, again, I think the value is better in getting two guys like Adolis Garcia and David Peralta. And Jock, by the way, might be more of a DH at this point as well. He basically totally played DH for the Diamondbacks last year and only hit against righties. So there's some limit to Jock's impact, even though he's still a great bat against right-handed pitchers. So I wouldn't necessarily wouldn't be shocked if Jock comes back. Sorry for the rhyme, but I think the Braves are looking in other directions. So again, Peralta, a veteran hitter, he still gives you good at bats. He gets on base at a pretty good clip. And again, he's coming off a season with the Padres as a part-time player. He had a 115 WRC plus, really solid. He's always pretty much been a good hitter. He went through some down years as he was getting older. Looked like he might have been done, but he had a good bounce back year last year with the Padres. So if you're acquiring Adolis Garcia as your everyday left fielder, Peralta as your everyday right fielder until Ronald comes back, and then Peralta can kind of be your veteran bat off the bench after that, I think that works pretty well. He doesn't work great as a fourth outfielder, so you might have to have another outfielder as your defensive replacement if you need one. Not that he can't play defense, but he's not going to play center field for you. But yeah, I think Peralta for, a pretty small salary, $2 or $3 million would make some sense. A couple other options, just to throw a couple names out there that I think could also work in this type of role. Max Kepler. Kepler is younger. He may be a better overall player at this point, but he's probably going to look for an opportunity for a full-time job all year. And so I think Peralta would be much happier as a backup outfielder on a playoff team than Max Kepler, but Kepler would be the better player in this scenario. The other guy, and you're going to know this name, Jason Hayward. So a Jason Hayward reunion, even at his advanced age, Hayward does have some value. He serves as a great fourth outfielder option. He can basically, even to this day, play every position in the outfield. He won't give you great value at the plate, but he can still hit a couple home runs. He hit 10 home runs last year in limited play. But again, because of his defense, he's still a valuable player to have on your roster. If you're looking for a lefty bat to pair and play a little bit early on before Ronald gets back, it actually does make a little sense for the Braves to look there. But I'm saying David Peralta, he's a little bit of the cheaper option. So there you go. All right, my next move would be to dump some salary, and this would be to trade Joe Jimenez. I mentioned this option in my last episode. I got some pushback from a couple guys. But look, there's no guarantee that he's going to come back. There's no guarantee he won't. But what will you get from Joe Jimenez in 2025? I don't think you can go forward planning to count on anything from him in 2025 as he has had this knee surgery. So what do you do with him? Do you just eat his salary and hope he comes back healthy for 2026? You certainly could do that. I mean, he's a top 20 relief pitcher in baseball right now. He was very good last year. So maybe the Braves just want to do that. But I'm saying you're gonna ship him away. So in this scenario, again, I have the Braves trying to stay under the CBT number, so it makes sense that Jimenez would be on the way out. You won't get much in return here, and that kind of stinks. You're shipping a really good pitcher away for not much of a return because a team's going to have to eat that 2025 salary and obviously be willing to pay him in 2026 as well. So you're gonna have to find a trade partner, but I think you absolutely can. There will be teams out there that are willing to eat that money in the short term to have him for 2026. You might not get much in return. Okay, you're not going to get a big prospect for a guy who can't pitch this year, but at least you're able to unload $9 million and help the Braves stay under that CBT number. All right, the next move that I would make is another salary dump, and David Fletcher is languishing in the minor leagues, and he's making about $6.5 million next year. I think his deal is done after that, but David Fletcher has zero value. He is in Major League Baseball limbo right now. He's got this gambling case that was kind of similar to Shohei Ohtani's case, but different as well, right? Totally different situation. I don't know anything about it other than Major League Baseball has been super, super slow in deciding the fate of David Fletcher. So the Braves simply can't bring him up, and he's making $6.5 million right now. So to move him, you would probably have to send a decent prospect with him. So this is the tougher one to move. You basically have to sell a prospect with David Fletcher. This would be similar to what the Braves did. You guys might remember this when they acquired Touki Toussaint from the Diamondbacks. They had to take Bronson Arroyo's contract with that. I think at the time it was like $15 million for 1 year. And of course, Arroyo was done for his career. I don't think he ever pitched again, but the Braves took on that money. So they would have to do something similar to that. Now, this one is like, I'm not sure Anthopoulos is cool with this kind of situation, but again, if you're trying to create more space to get under the CBT number, then these two deals to get rid of Jimenez, get rid of David Fletcher make a lot of sense. All right, my next two moves would be to bolster the bullpen. So you guys know the Braves are losing. Of course, they've already lost Jimenez, a high leverage righty, and they lost AJ Minter, high leverage lefty, to free agency. A couple other lower leverage guys are also gone. So I'm going to try to replace Minter and Joe Jimenez. Now, you could go out and bring back AJ Minter, but he's coming off this hip injury, and I wonder if the Braves are going to be jumping to do that. Maybe they can get him for a much lower salary, just bring him in, let him prove himself again, prove that he's healthy. So maybe that does happen. But I don't know that they would be depending on AJ Minter this year. So the first guy I would look to is to sign left-handed reliever Andrew Chafin, probably about a $4.5 million contract. Chafin was with the Tigers for a while and then the Rangers last year. He doesn't have huge fastball velocity, but he's still a strikeout machine. He has a great breaking ball and gets a ton of swing and miss. He's like in the 90th percentile in chase rate and whiff rates with that breaking ball. So he had a down 2023, but he bounced back big time in 2024, had a 3.5 ERA, and his peripherals were really good as well. So you'd get a really solid pitcher from the left side. Then you could pivot and sign right-handed pitcher David Robertson. I would say that one's probably about $7 million. He's about to turn 40, but he has remained elite late into his career. He had a 3 ERA and a 1.1 whip in 2024, I think also with the Rangers. If not Robertson, by the way, I mean, I kind of like him, but there's a number of righty relievers that would probably be around this price tag, maybe a little higher, to choose from. Kirby Yates, Carlos Estevez, you'd probably have to get him to a pretty big multi-year deal. Clay Holmes, Blake Trinan, all of these guys are out there, and the Braves, I really expect them to do something like that to try to replace those innings, high leverage innings from Jimenez. So it just seems like a no-brainer that they're going to do something like that. I mean, Kirby Yates, maybe bring him back. There's probably some comfortability with that. Okay, so that is the last move that, again, this is not necessarily me saying I would do all of these moves, but this is, I think, fitting into some of the things that the Braves typically do. So sign Jose Quintana, trade for Adolis Garcia, sign David Peralta, salary dump Joe Jimenez and David Fletcher, sign Andrew Chafin, and right-handed pitcher David Robertson. So this plan ultimately would cost the Braves about $18.5 million. They would add that. Remember, they have about $25 to $27 million to play with to still stay under the CBT. So that would still leave the Braves with about $8.5 million to use if they had something else, go after utility bat or something like that, or just keep it for the trade deadline. It would also cost you 2 to 3 prospects, I'm assuming, with the trades that you are doing. So that's kind of my idea. Now, let's talk about this potential Orlando Arcia trade. Again, this is not one that I'm predicting, but if it were to happen, I think this could be a team that would be willing to trade with the Braves. So if the Braves surprise us and trade Orlando Arcia, I think one fit could be to send Arcia back to the cost-conscious Brewers. That's, remember, where Arcia started his career, with the Brewers. They need a shortstop. They really don't have a pure shortstop with Willy Adames exiting via free agency. And in that scenario, getting a $2 million per year shortstop in Arcia might be something they would really value. And in this, the Braves would receive Devin Williams. Now, this is not a straight-up trade because Devin Williams is one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. So you can't just trade Arcia. So it would probably cost a couple of more prospects on top of it. This would probably add about $5 million more to your payroll. But I think this could be something, again, I'm not predicting, but if Arcia goes, I could see this being a trade partner with the Braves. But of course, if you did this, now the Braves don't have a shortstop, so you would have to go out and get another shortstop. And that's kind of one of the main reasons I'm not seeing the Braves doing this. They don't have any internal options. It would cost them a good bit to go out and get a shortstop like a Ha-Seong Kim in free agency. I love Ha-Seong Kim, by the way. This would be one of the things I would prioritize and do. But I just don't see the Braves doing it. MLB Trade Rumors had his projected salary, I think, around $14 million, $15 million per year. Some people think he'll sign a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal, because he's injured. And the other complicating thing about getting Ha-Seong Kim is he's coming off of shoulder surgery, an injury that took him out for a lot of the back half of last year, and he probably won't be ready until May 1st. The Braves are already dealing with that with Ronald Acuna and with Spencer Strider. I doubt that they would want to add another question mark guy coming off of injury that would be a key part of your team. So I don't expect that to happen. There's other options the Braves could explore if they traded Arcia, but all that being said, I don't necessarily expect it. Okay, so guys, let me know what you think. There were a lot of different directions I could have gone with this. But to me, I do feel like it sounds at least like an Alex Anthopoulos kind of off season. It's finding value. It's guys that could, if they play their best baseball, could really be special. A little less expensive than the aisles that the Dodgers and all those other teams are shopping in. So let me know what you think. Again, it's not exactly how I would do it, but I do think it fits Alex Anthopoulos' MO. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of State of the Braves. We'll continue to watch the offseason and see what Anthopoulos actually does and see if I get any of these right. Okay. Talk to you later.